My name is Andy Nocco. I'm a columnist of the Chicago Sun-Times, but that could not possibly matter less because we got some really, really great people on the panel to talk to you this time. Oh, sorry, let's pass down the water. You need hydration. And we were at that deadly 43-foot elevation here in Boston.
I got a nosebleed.
Well, that's mostly the blue laws hitting you. Again, most of these people need no introduction, but part of the nice thing about having a group of people here to see them is that you get to see nice things about their incredibly impressive careers. Starting off with Joe Sinnott, who, if there were an escape pod and you could rescue only two legends from Marvel, one seat would go to Stan Lee, the other seat would go to Joe. He's had a career that started off with a whole bunch of different publishers with the precursor of Marvel in the early 50s and continues through basically every single major artist and every character Marvel has ever done, up to and including tomorrow's Amazing Spider-Man comic strip. Joe Sinnott, everybody. Yeah. If there's anything you like about Iron Man, you have Bob Layton and his partner David Michelini to thank about that. Everything that defines, excuse me. It really does seem so. Everything that defines both the technology of the rules of the armor right now for the past 20 or 30 years, and also everything that you love and everything you love to hate about Tony Stark came about with your guys' reinvention of the character. And so that's quite a legacy. Everybody, please follow it. As for Bernie Wrightson, I'm sure that with maybe one or two exceptions in this room and maybe even in this conference hall, when we think of Frankenstein's monster, we don't think of the movie monster, we think of Bernie's artwork. Absolutely classic, meticulous, the most highly praised analog style that could ever be done. Bernie Wrightson. And hopefully coming soon. Oh, there's Bill Sienkiewicz coming up here.
One thing people don't know about Joe, by the way, one of the great sports illustrators in the business.
That's right.
His baseball illustrations are legendary.
Yes, absolutely. Please go to his website, joesinnott.com, where you'll see not only his popular work, but also his sports. His work as a sports fan, his work as a Bing Crosby fan. Really, he has a really wonderful essay about Bing up there that if you don't understand why Bing was such a great singer, you will after you read him.
Bill, you made it just in time for your introduction. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good timing, brother.
Well, it's, yeah, but by the, taking the whole name.
Panel's over. We just pronounced his name.
Exactly. I'm Andy Inotko. I'm responsible for why every time there's a page on an airport where would Andy pause. Yeah, here here's the person you're looking for. As for Bill, what I love so much about Bill's work is he started out as someone who came up with, when he broke in, he had this incredibly popular commercial style that was influenced by Neil Adams. A lot of artists could have made a very, very good career about being the next Neil Adams, but man, he just put a booster rocket on his own pen and decided to go in his own way. There's no way to mistake Bill's artwork for anybody else's, where it is a redefining take on a classic character or commercial artwork like the inserts to the Venture Brothers DVD set. A thrill every time you see one of the pieces of artwork. Bill Sienkiewicz, please. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm taking that. Now, obviously, we have a packed house. I'm sure a million questions that want to be asked. So I'm going to ask one question on my own. That's the privilege of having taken so much time to make slides here. But after that, I really want to throw it out to the crowd. But the question I really want to ask all of you.
It's not even here.
There you go, Bernie. Let's go. Throw those door rolls up there. On the Twitter.
Yeah,
exactly. Twitter. Tweet me. It took so much time for me to do this. I'm glad it's being appreciated. The awesome power of the iPad, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, the one question I really wanted to ask for the entire panel is, there are always distinct moments where you get your first paycheck as a working artist and you can call yourself a professional. And then you're getting regular work and you can call yourself an established professional. But it's kind of nebulous on what happens when you suddenly get that realization that you are a really known quantity. There are people out there who appreciate your work and really have expectations from you when they know that you're going to be working on a certain book. I was wondering for each and every one of you, was there a specific moment in your careers where you just sat back and said, dang it, I'm actually a real, I mean, let's say legend, because you're all way too humble to call yourselves legends, but
Legend.
I could be wrong.
Andy, a legend has a really interesting connotation. I was telling Billy about it earlier. That Dick Giordano said to me once, we were sitting around having lunch, and somebody had used that term for me, and he says, "You know what that means, right?" And I said, "What?" He says, "That means they're being polite instead of calling you old." I said, "Oh, gee, that's nice to know."
But was there a moment like that? No? Can you possibly have done so much great work and still not feel as though...
You gotta understand what drives us. A lot, for those of us that, are still devoted to our craft, we're never good enough. It's never, I mean, I think I'm a better artist now than I ever was at the time people were pinning all sorts of labels on me. I keep driving to be better and better at what I do, whether it's writing or drawing. Yeah. But I don't really feel like there was any one moment. I mean, there's a moment where you get a big paycheck or something, and it's like, that's nice. But, it's like, I guess, for me, the iconic moment was, I guess, with the first Iron Man movie. And that's later on in my career, but what was great about it was, suddenly, after 35 years of busting my ass with this character, my mother understood what I did for a living. Because Iron Man had become part of Americana, part of our lexicon now, where before it was a secondary character.
Well, nothing's real until it's a movie.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So, but like now, my mom suddenly got it. She's like all excited. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. It's like she's like, I went back and looked at some of the old comics. I get it now. I'm like. So for me, that was that pinnacle moment where I convinced my 85-year-old mother that I wasn't wasting my time for the last 30 years.
Excellent. Let's throw it out to questions. Let's get right to it. Anybody has a question, please step up to the mic. You're all shy, so I'm going to ask a second question. That, once again, a good moderation. Round of applause, please. Right? Different tone of response. Different tone of response. With the possible exception of Joe, you've had long careers with a lot of different titles to your credit, but for each and every one of you, with the possible exception of Joe, there's one signature character, maybe two signature characters that will always follow you. It's going to be one of the first two paragraphs of your obits is going to say Bob Layton of famous Iron Man artist, Bill Sienkiewicz, famous on Moon Knight and Elektra, Wrightson, famous artist of Frankenstein. Is that still an asset to you, or does it come on guys, I want to be able to draw pony comics, but no one will assign it to me because they'll think it'll be like a revived cadaver when I draw this pony.
Very good. It's twice he's never mentioned Swamp Thing. Is that like a touchy subject with you? I remember, because you started about 5 years before me.
Right.
And man, your Swamp Thing was like the most amazing, planet.
It was, I was lucky that, nobody else was doing anything like that at the time. And my and Glenn's, the co-creator, Swamp Thing came along. It was the first thing of its kind, not ever, but for a long time.
But your take on it visually was really stunning. I mean, it set itself apart from anything else being done.
At the time, I didn't know I was drawing a comic book. I thought that, I was trying to make the best pretty horrible pictures that I could. I knew nothing about storytelling, and somehow it worked, it found its niche right away. I had nothing to do with that, I think, it was just being in the right place at the right time. I tell everybody, it's like, how did you get started? And I got lucky. That's all.
Oh, but you do glamorous horror. That's nothing to say about you,
Thanks. I try to make it as good as Graham is, and everything I do, every time I sit down, it's like, if Graham Hinkle saw this, he would pay me a compliment and look at it and go like, nice.
Well, that's also, yes, absolutely. What else got me about your work was seeing the Swamp Thing, and then a lot of people, don't really maybe not think that the fact that we do what we do we also are fans too. And I'm a fan of all of these gentlemen here. And I remember seeing Bernie's stuff on Swamp Thing, and then catching his stuff as he kept growing and changing his work on in the creepy and eerie and Heart of the Warren magazines. I mean, it was like you were trying something every issue, a brand new style, and just pushing. And there was an element of timing as well. I think that's also one thing that that Bernie mentions, that luck is it has a lot to do with it.
Bernie, did you ever have any problems with, because you have such an intricate art style, were you ever pushing up against the limits of printing back in the 70s?
All the time. All the time, yeah. The reproduction was always something I was banging my head against, because, I was trying to do, this very feathery, fine line style that, the camera wasn't picking up or the printing press wasn't laying down. And sometimes it would fall out, sometimes it would clump up, and just look like a bunch of dirty splotches. And, it got frustrating. That was one of the reasons that I left color comics for a while and went to Warren to, do it in black and white. Because I thought, well, this is one step closer to what the original looks like, and doesn't have the color all over it, it kind of obscures it and everything.
Yeah, some of the evolution of our styles comes from combating the methods in which our books were manufactured.
Yeah.
You have to work for clarity.
Yeah.
You had to work, and you had to forego a lot of stuff that you would have loved to have done,
Oh, yeah.
because you knew it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd thing, because if you think about inking and penciling and the sort of almost Henry Ford process of breaking down comics in terms of whether the penciler, the letterer, the inker, part of the whole reason that inking and artists like Bernie and like all of my colleagues up here, and artists like did a lot of work like etching, because etching line work had to show up on print, because print quality and print capabilities were not like they are today with digital. I mean, if you did something in pencil, a side of a pencil or something else, you couldn't translate that to the newspaper or to the magazine because of a poor print quality. So the idea of actually doing comics, to me, when I, growing up and reading comics were something that were on newsprint that was going to go yellow and then fall apart.
Well, there's still big chunks of wood in the paper. You can see it floating around.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that you see now is sort of, it's an entirely different beast.
Andy, I gotta take one exception to Joe's introduction a little bit. There is one character that he's really defined. I think it was, if you really look at the history of the Fantastic Four, Joe did the definitive Thing. I mean, his version of the Thing is pretty much what set the look for that character throughout Marvel's history.
Sure.
Yeah. Because up to that time, he was it's really true. It's true. He does the best thing in the business.
Well, I'll devolve into fanboy mode here. It's hard to see a single artist that you didn't really add that ounce of octane to the way that they drew. There are artists who, unfortunately, they've got really crushing deadlines, books are late, but Joe's inking it, so there's always that really great sense of continuity. Right.
That's what happened. Joe became the house style of Marvel. I mean, everybody was supposed to kind of look like Joe.
Yeah.
Look at Joe's stuff, do what he does.
Yeah, every single artist is a different artist when Joe's inking them. How difficult is it for you to have to work with so many different penciling styles, but still make sure that your personality comes through? Is that even important for you?
Well, of course, some of the guys I worked with was extremely difficult. I was giving a lot of guys ink when they were quite young, just entering Marvel. Bill was one. And because I was amazed by
Joe, fix this, right?
Yeah. But early on, I remember doing things I never knew what to expect from Bill, because it seemed he was always experimenting. And there were times when I felt, hey, he should have stopped here. How can he improve on what he's doing? But the next story I would get from it would be a completely different style. And I'd say to myself, no, I like that last style better. But most, to me, of course, it was a job. I just knocked the stuff out as it came in. In fact, my son